I just moved from the New England area. I know how parochial it is. I know how cynical it is. Part of that, politically and sports-wise, I absolutely love. But there's a feeling in Boston, fair or not, and I think it's largely unfair, that the NFL is anti-Patriots. We know it's parochial. We understand how fans react. But how comfortable are you with that?
Well, listen, the fans are going to feel what they want. We have obviously 32 sets of fans, national fans, that want to make sure that we're doing things that are upholding the integrity of the game at all times. We think this is a great opportunity to see the two best teams in football playing on Sunday in the Super Bowl. The Patriots have earned it. The Falcons have earned it, and we're thrilled. We think this is one of the great matchups and should be one of the great games.
But Boston fans are thinking, why doesn't the commissioner show up to our playoff games again? This is how Boston reacts. It's a feisty media. So I have to ask you, why not go to Foxborough? Were there safety concerns, perhaps?
No, Colin. Listen, we had two great games. I was in Boston 2 years ago for the divisional and the championship games. I try to get to as many stadiums as I can. But, we have two great games, and you've got to choose. And frankly, the focus should be on the players, the coaches, and the great game. And that's the way it was this weekend and the way it should be. We
know, Commissioner, that obviously NFL owners are people you work for. This is how all commissioners work. There are commissioners at various times. David Stern struggled with Mark Cuban. Robert Kraft, the belief is that he's not happy with you at the very moment. Do you believe that to be true?
Colin, listen, I wouldn't be doing my job if somebody wasn't unhappy with a decision that you make or where you're doing it. Robert and I can disagree about things. We have a healthy respect for one another, but that's true with any owner. And that doesn't affect my relationship or the fact that we work together to try to make the NFL better ultimately. That's the most important thing, Colin, for us. I can't agree with everybody. Yeah. At every moment, and I shouldn't. A lot of these issues can be issues between teams. We obviously, in many cases, have to discipline our clubs. That's part of the process, and we do that with a large number of our clubs when they're violations of policy. But it's not personal, it's professional, and it's to make sure that we're doing everything to protect the great game we have and promote it.
I understood because of the global growth. That's what you're looking for. Domestically, you're a very powerful league. The NFL Commissioner, Roger Goodell, joining us. And I understand the stadium issue in Oakland, and I understand them voting on that in March if they moved. But San Diego, Commissioner, doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel right to me. In my gut, it feels, I don't know if it's too expedient, too fast, but San Diego doesn't feel to me as good as Oakland potentially moving or St. Louis moving to a globally iconic city, Los Angeles. Are you happy currently with the San Diego to L.A. move?
Well, Colin, listen, we're all disappointed, and we all worked very, very hard with local officials, with the Chargers and the Spanos family, with all of our clubs. And we did some unprecedented things to try to keep the Chargers in San Diego, which was our first priority. And that's why all of our relocations, these are painful processes. They're painful for our fans. They're painful for the communities in general. They're painful for the NFL. And so we always work to avoid that. And we did that in San Diego. We worked very hard to try to avoid it, to make sure that we went not just the extra mile, but the extra 3 or 4 miles, including the Chargers had the opportunity to move, frankly, a year ago. They stayed. Dean wanted to try to give it another shot. He went for a referendum. Unfortunately, that did not pass. And then we, faced with a consequence where everyone in that community recognizes that a new stadium has to be built. They have for several years. They've recognized that there have been many failed attempts at getting that done that all of us bear responsibility for. So for us, it is disappointing, and we would have loved to have had the Chargers in San Diego. I think Dean Spanos will be the first to tell you that. But we have to look forward. We have to look long term, and we have to, ultimately make sure that we're doing what's best for each of our franchises, but with a very, very strong consideration to making sure that we've done everything possible for our fans.
And excuse me for my cynicism, but it feels like if the Eagles or the Bears or the Cowboys or these, I would say these entrenched franchises were out there hanging the Steelers, that with the billions a year annually the TV makes in your league makes in television revenue, you would jump in. Why can't a league say, here's $1 billion, an interest-free loan. We want to get this thing done. We don't want to have two teams jammed into Los Angeles in 6 weeks, 6 months. Am I being cynical to believe that if it would have been a Bears, a Steelers, and Eagles, the league would have done more?
No, Colin, I don't think you're being cynical, but I think if you go back and look at the facts over the period of time, we've been very successful in getting stadiums built in those communities. Each of the franchises you mentioned have had stadium challenges, but they were able to work through them. They were able to get them done with the local community leadership and the team. And we are the only league in the league that, in sports, and to my knowledge in the world, that contributes league money into each of the stadium projects. And in the case of San Diego, NFL owners put not just the 200 that we put into each community, but we put 300 into it as the effort of the league to try to see if we could bridge the gap. So, again, I just go back, Colin, you're not being cynical, but I think the NFL owners, I think the Spanos family, and I think the community gave it all a really great effort. But are we disappointed? Of course.
I never thought I'd ask a commissioner about marijuana, but here goes. The NFLPA. I've got to be. I'm from Washington State, where they're okay smoking it, Commissioner. So this is an odd question. I apologize, but the NFLPA has composed a proposal for less punitive approach to marijuana use. I would admit I'm a fiscal conservative, but a social left-leaner, perhaps, and I'm okay with it. It's a sport that has some regulated components of violence and physical contact. I do worry about chronic pain for your employees. I like less punitive approach to marijuana use, like the NFLPA. Do you?
Well, first off, I spoke with Dee this morning. We've had several conversations about this issue, and in fact, 2 years ago, we did take a less punitive approach to marijuana. This is a collective drug program that we have with the Players Association and the NFL. And we'll always seek to try to find a better way to do things and to see if the policy needs to be modified, as we did 2 years ago. That will be one of the subjects, obviously, that we'll have in the collective bargaining process, which we would like to get into sooner rather than later. We think it's in all parties' interest to extend the agreement we have now. That's working very well for obviously the players, but also the clubs, and I believe the game and the fans in general.
Roger Goodell, NFL commissioner, 11 years in office, a three-star sports star, by the way. I captained all three teams, but an injury kept you out of playing football at the college level, and I want to talk about that because Thursday night games, we did a study in our show, and we found that there are fewer penalties on Thursday, and the completion percentages are higher on Thursday, so I don't buy the media narrative that it's bad football. I do not. We have looked up efficiency stats, and they're better than the league average. However, the optics are from veteran players that safety matters, and a lot of veteran players have said on Thursday, some old guys wake up still sore. We know that football's not as bad. We looked it up. We do think the games are pretty darn good. But we do worry about the optics for veteran players. That has to be something you at least are talking about, right?
Of course, Colin, but, we're more than just optics here. We're into facts. And so go to the same statistics, because you're right about the quality of the games on Thursday night. There are actually less penalties, less turnovers. Almost by every barometer, the quality of the game is better on Thursday night. Now, obviously, some games you're going to have that aren't going to be as competitive, and they'll have a dominance. But you get that. On safety, we've been tracking this every year, and there has not been any indication, facts, or anything else that would indicate that the level of injuries are up on Thursday night. Of course, playing a game like football, you're going to be sore the next morning. Yes, of course, we always take that into consideration. And that's one of the things why we walked very slowly into this as we built Thursday night football. We started off with 8 games, and we built it up. And it's something that we'll continue to look at. How do we do the scheduling, as an example? Should we have people flying on Sunday night, returning, and then playing away on Thursday? We try to do whatever we can to make sure we give those players the opportunity to recover from any injuries or even the normal contact that they're going to have in a game. But also we hear a lot, and this came up in our negotiations in 2011, that a lot of the players really like it because you have 10 days afterwards before the next game.
Right.
And so it acts as a sort of mini bye was, I think, the term that was used. So there are a lot of things you have to balance in there, Colin.
The NFL's always done a good job of controlling their content. It is, it's often referred to as the shield. But I used to work at a company that struggled with the emerging social media world we have. It's hard to get your arms around it. It's hard to control. Facebook Live story on Antonio Brown. As a gentleman, you and I both did not grow up with an iPhone in our hand at 18 years old. Is it realistic to say, listen, NFL, this is the one part of your content you're not going to be able to control. Lighten up on Twitter, NFL, and let the kids talk?
Well, we do. We have, obviously, a social media policy that's been changing. In fact, we made a lot of changes earlier this year. And yes, we have technology. We have an opportunity for our players to go directly to the fans. Those are all new opportunities. I think we're exploring each of those aggressively. But we also need to protect and make sure that we're doing the right thing for our current partners in our current negotiations. But we're pushing and adopting into that technology quite quickly. Maybe not as quickly as everybody wants, but with the idea that it's great for the fans. And that's why you see all of our fan engagement numbers are going up dramatically on that level, because more people are engaging with these technologies, and we're delivering on that.
Roger,
do we have more to do, Colin? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's fluid. It's hard. My former employer dealt with this. It's very, very hard. Okay, I got to ask you this. I got 45 seconds left. And you've been very candid with me, and I do appreciate you choosing us. I really do. But I got to ask you, you just got to be as honest as you can. If you handed the trophy to Brady, wouldn't there be a little discomfort maybe because of all the talk and the narrative and the media, and people say, oh, Roger's uncomfortable with that, the committee. Would you be slightly uncomfortable for even a moment?
Not for a second. This is one of the great opportunities. We have two dominant teams playing the Super Bowl. The Patriots and Falcons have both earned the opportunity to be there. They deserve it. And whoever wins that championship is going to have to earn it, because these are great teams. And so I'm going to be thrilled. Tom Brady is one of the all-time greats. He has been for several years. He's on the precipice of at least potentially winning his fifth Super Bowl ring. He's an extraordinary player, great performer, and a surefire Hall of Famer. So it would be an honor.
Well, I have friends in Las Vegas, and they do appreciate you taking a more progressive stance like Adam Silver on the NBA with Las Vegas, less of a stigma. And I know a lot of people in that city appreciate it. There is a stigma in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s of gambling in Las Vegas, but you guys seem as a league to be more open to it, and I've been told by friends they appreciate that. I imagine, did Adam Silver influence you at all?
No, we've seen the changes in the culture, I think, around the country in gambling. We're obviously very sensitive to that, but we're also, we're going to evaluate the Raiders' case on the relocation application and what's in the overall best interest of the league. But also, Colin, listen, the one thing we can't ever do is compromise on the game. And that's one of the things we'll do, is make sure that the policies that we've created, if we did in any way approve the Raiders, I don't see us compromising in any of the policies.
Yeah. Commissioner, thank you for your time this morning and answering.
You're welcome, Colin.
And answering all my questions. Thank you.
Enjoy the Super Bowl. It's going to be a great one.